Did you watch The Good Place?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that this entire thing, not this episode, but this entire thing is my good place. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing a podcast about my favorite show with my best friend, and really, I don't know it, but I hate it.
But you're in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, Jeremy Baramy. Welcome to SVU POD, especially heinous. I'm Gabe.
I'm Tasha.
We are on season 2, episode 5, Baby Killer. Tasha's favorite. Okay, opening scene. We are at a playground of a school. It's recess. The kids are like running all over the place. There's like an outside teacher who's just kind of trying to keep everybody in line.
She got bullshit playground duty that nobody ever wants.
Yeah. She sees a bunch of kids talking to some adults through the fence and goes up and tells those dudes, she's like, get the fuck out of here. And they're like, fuck you, bitch. Then there's a gunshot and all the kids are screaming and running, and there's a little girl laying on the ground.
Who's been shot, and this girl has to be, I'm guessing this girl's like 6 years old at this point.
Yeah. The teacher, she is like an amazing actress. I don't know who her name is or anything, but she was like screaming, like, help me, help me. There's like spit coming out of her mouth. And
Oh, yeah. And the teacher also has a fucking walkie-talkie, and she calls over the radio for somebody to call 911.
And then theme song. So they're in the squad room. Everybody's sitting on desks and hanging out like a ragtag group of detectives. Cragen's got like a serious dad face on, and he's like, you guys, there's been a shooting of a little kid. Obviously, everybody's like bummed out about it.
Yeah, but Munch rightfully is like, why did we catch it?
Yeah. Cragen says the brass thinks we're better equipped to handle the situation. And then Stabler's like, okay, fine, bring in the pervert.
Oh, those infamous double doors
Oh, yeah.
open up, and 2 cops walk in, flanking this fucking first
I
grader.
know. So the kid is in Cragen's office playing with dinosaurs. They were trying to get a hold of the parents. Both had called in sick that day, and they hadn't found them yet. And Munch is like, oh, they called in sick. Like, that answers a bunch of questions for me.
Judgy Munch.
Yeah. But then, like, immediately, like, 2 parents run in and are like, oh my God, where's our son? We heard there was a shooting. Like, oh my God, tell me he's okay. They gave us the address to SVU, not the hospital. Like, is he dead? You know? And
Yeah.
Benson's like, oh my God, he's fine. He's actually the shooter. And they were like, what?
The way she said it when they came in, she's like, oh, sorry about the confusion. Like there was a delivery order mix up.
Yeah.
She's like, your son wasn't shot. He was
Yeah.
the shooter. Gasp. Could you like come with it any worse,
Yeah.
Benson?
You get extra packets of ketchup and your son's the shooter. You're like, what? What? Is that bad?
I don't know.
They don't know where he got the gun. The parents don't have a gun, and he's only ever at school, his sitters, or home. And his sitter's name is Mrs. Strata.
Okay, this kid is also 7 years old and apparently meets the cutoff to be able to be charged with murder.
Cragen's like, we want to talk to him, but we can't talk to him until like we have your permission. We need you to like sign like a
Miranda waiver.
Yeah, they're like, whatever, hurry, that's fine.
They also said that the serial number was filed off, but the dad's got no record or anything. So Toots is noting this, kind of saying that it would be unlikely that it would be his dad's gun because he's got 0 criminal history. So why would he have a filed off serial number on a fucking handgun?
Right.
You know, because those things usually go together.
So Olivia brings the parents into the room with Stabler. So the parents were at the emergency room all morning because their youngest daughter was born with a respiratory problem. That's why they had called off work.
Yeah, Munch, you dick.
Yeah. The cops bring in the boy, and Stabler starts asking him questions about what happened, but like in a calm, like cool dad way.
Yeah, the kid is super tiny and cute, and he's sitting at this little kid table, and then Stabler sits down and he's got his knees in his armpits.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, bud.
Hey, man, what's up? So he's asking Elias, did we already say his name? The little boy's name is Elias. Stabler's asking about Carly, who's the little girl that died.
Carly Jackson.
Elias said he didn't really like her because she chases him and tries to kiss him, like little kid stuff. Stabler's like, what happened to Carly? Elias is like, she fell down because of the gun that I was holding. The dad pops up and is like, we need a lawyer. And Stabler's like, oh my God, that's totally fucking fine. We have a phone, but he has to stay with us. Like, call a lawyer.
Like, he's in fucking custody.
Yeah. So Cragen's like, Munch, you guys need to go check out friends, family, neighbors, and school and see where he maybe got that gun.
So Munch and Toots go back to the playground, and the teacher that was from the beginning of the episode is there next to where Carly fell, and it's been turned into like this little memorial. It's got photos, flowers.
Yeah.
She tells Munch that Elias is a good kid who doesn't get in trouble, and when she ran to Carly, she saw Elias trying to ditch the gun in a trash can, and she just said that Carly was the sweetest little girl, and she seemed like a really good teacher.
Yeah. She said that both Carly and Elias were like really good kids, and
Yeah.
She's like, "What did we miss? Like, what's going on?"
So Benson and Stabler are then at the home of Dorothy Estrada.
I think she's like a beautiful peach of a woman.
I loved her.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
At
I
first.
loved her when we met her.
Yeah.
She's a raspy-voiced, no-nonsense, white-haired, sturdy older woman with a
Mhm.
crocheted shawl that I kind of loved.
Like, all the kids are out in the courtyard playing, and there's, like, tons of them running around.
Like a shitload of kids she's in charge
Yeah,
of.
she's just sitting in a chair looking out the window, but, like, still being in charge of stuff.
Yeah, so Stabler's asking her questions, but she just, like, keeps yelling out the window, checking kids for shit.
Mhm.
She's busy at her job too, you
Mhm.
guys. Like, she's gonna keep unpacking boxes too.
Mhm.
The detectives want contacts of all the parents of all the kids, and she has all of them. She's got, like, a little binder. Stabes has the audacity to ask her if she's responsible for all of the kids running around, and
Mhm.
she's like, yeah, and I'm fucking killing it, you dick."
Yeah, she's like, "I take my job very seriously, young man."
And I'm like, "Ooh, Stabler, take a seat."
Mhm.
So, cut to a little boy sitting at his desk being questioned by Toots. His name is Sammy, and he gives Toots an attitude, but I can only imagine the trauma that he's trying to process.
Mhm.
Like, he just saw one of his classmates shot
Yeah,
by another one of his classmates.
I like how he gives Toots a little bit of attitude, and then Toots kinda starts raising his voice and getting a little bit of attitude and goes back and forth, and I'm like, "Toots, you're like 50. Like, this
Right.
kid's 7. Chill out."
But he asks, "Where did Elias get the gun?" And Sammy's like, "From his pants." But in the end, he tells him that he hadn't seen the gun before that moment. So he
Mhm.
couldn't really give him that much. So then Munch is talking to this other little boy. And if I didn't know any better, I would think this was Bruno Mars, the 7-year-old
Oh my
version.
god. He
Right?
yeah, it's
Gabe texted me a photo of him. Like, as soon as she goes, "Oh my God, look at him."
he's got, like, puffy hair, a little bit of, like, schmutz in the corner of his
He's
mouth.
so
Yeah,
cute.
he was, like, the cutest little boy ever.
So he told Munch that Carly would try to kiss Elias all the time. Elias would get red in the face and embarrassed, and Munch asked if she had kissed him that day, and the little boy just said she was walking over to him.
Mhm. So everything's kind of pointing to, like, Elias just, like, straight up shooting this girl because of, like, little kid stuff and just having access to a gun, and it's, like, weird.
Mhm.
Benson and Stabler are in a precinct elevator. Stabler tells Benson that Cabot is, like, gunning for the parents.
Yeah, they're discussing parental responsibility because it's currently a hot button issue. And Olivia, this is weird because this is like a role reversal
I
thing.
know, I was thinking that.
Because she does not like the fact that Elliot gives any kind of indication that he sees Elias as any level of victim.
Yeah, because Stabler keeps saying things like, Where did he get the gun? What happened to him to make him do this?" And it was really
Which I think
weird.
is a valid question.
Sure, and it was weird. Olivia's like, "Stop trying to make him a victim. The only victim here is a dead little girl." And I was like, "What?"
Mm.
Usually it's her trying to be like,
She's the one who kind of sees the bigger picture.
"Yeah."
I don't think him asking that is making Elias a victim any more than what's reasonable.
I mean, it's a 7-year-old kid. That doesn't happen often. It's gonna make you think about, like, what the fuck is going on.
Also, the assumption that Elias knew the cause and effect of shooting Carly is a real stretch
Mhm.
for me, for a kid that age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think kids at that age can fully understand like consequences.
Yeah. They get into a lot of that in this episode.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
The detectives get to the squad room, double doors, and there's a woman standing in the way of their shoulder to shoulder entry.
It's Sonia Perez. She is Elias's teacher. She's in the squad room and she's like digging through her bag and she's talking about classroom sizes and how it's fucking impossible to give kids the attention that they deserve because there's like way too many kids. And
Yeah, she's over capacity in her classroom.
what did you say? It was 32 is the top and she has 40 or some shit.
Yeah.
She says after 20 years of teaching, like nothing shocks her anymore, but then pulls out a drawing Elias did that looks like a man and a boy, and like the man is shooting through a pillow or something at someone with a
Mhm.
ponytail and camouflage pants.
Mhm.
And he drew that yesterday.
And there's like blood everywhere.
Yeah, which was like before he shot Carly.
So they're all like, what the fuck, assuming
Because Carly had a ponytail, so they're like
planning it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cabot's having a heated discussion with the deputy DA. He says that they need to charge Elias with murder. This guy's on fairly often, and I never catch his name.
Me either.
Anyway, he's like second in command. He's Cabot's boss. Okay.
Mhm.
He's the one who tells her like what she can and cannot do. He's saying that they need to charge Elias with murder, and Cabot's like, he's fucking 7. So he doubles down that 7 is the age that they can charge him. And Cabot reminds him that the youngest they've ever convicted before that was 11 years old. And he
Mhm.
goes, yeah, that was before Columbine.
I didn't know if we should like talk about Columbine for a second because there's a lot of people that are alive that don't even know now.
We're gonna talk about
Okay, cool. I
Columbine.
put go on about Columbine for a second.
My chaser's about Columbine
Oh.
because this is the second time where we've been like, "Ooh, should we touch on Columbine for a second?" Because
Mhm.
remember in the first season, they they hit Columbine really fresh.
Mhm.
But then I don't remember. I did the chaser on something else that time, and I don't remember what it was. But we were like, "We'll get back to that because it's gonna fucking come up again."
Yeah.
Here we are. But Cabot gets all in his face about him needing to come down hard on this kid for political
Yeah,
reasons.
she's like, "Oh, you're bored of being the chief assistant of the DA and you're trying to fucking replace the DA next fall." But she's like, "I'm not going to make a fucking young boy a scapegoat for you to prove you're tough on crime for your election."
Yeah.
And he's like pissed for being like called out so viciously yet correctly.
She's all but losing her shit
Yeah.
on this guy. Like she's measured, but like
Yeah.
she's about to fucking blow.
Yeah.
She's such a bad bitch.
Oh my
I
God.
just fucking love her.
Yeah.
But he doesn't bite in any of this and he stays like gaslighty calm. You know that thing
Mhm.
where like you're on fire and then that the person stays super calm and he's got the power in this situation. Like she
Mhm.
has to do what he says. So he's just like we have more than enough and we're charging him with murder and the picture that
Yeah.
Elias drew gives intent and Cabot's like why not just transfer to Texas so we can execute him?
She's on
And he's
fire.
like, he walks away. Cabot's in a fucked up position and she knows it and she hates it.
So they're in the court and the judge is like, am I hearing this fucking right? Are we fucking charging this kid with murder? The 7-year-old with fucking
I'm
murder?"
sorry, did I get the right file? Is this
Cool, cool,
sure,
cool,
this makes
cool,
sense.
cool, cool. The judge was like, "Are there no other fucking options?" And Cabot's like, "Yeah, we're charging him because no fucking alternative has presented itself. Unfortunately, like she's not happy."
Mm,
So the judge is like, "How does Elias plead?" And his stupid lawyer says, like, general denial." It's like, this is insane because it is. So then Cabot's like, "We haven't ruled out like the fitness of Elias's home as a contributing factor to the crime. So they want to like put him in a detention center pending the trial." Of
mhm.
course, like the mom and dad freak out.
Yeah. And Elias's lawyer is like, no way, dude. He comes from a loving nuclear family, blah, blah, blah. Not that that has anything to do with
Right.
anything. The nuclear part.
Especially, yeah. But what is it, 2000? People are stupid.
That's you have nothing to back up the fact that like the year matters.
I don't
So
know. I just
people are
feel like
stupid.
that nuclear, this is what a family is supposed to look like, shit was still hanging
Mhm.
on then. It's like, don't fucking tell me how to love people. Fuck you. What?
Beautifully said.
Yeah, Cabot's like, they have ties to out of the country. Elias's mom is like obviously fucking crying, looks behind her at a woman staring at her. I'm assuming it's Carly's mom. It is Carly's
Stone
mom.
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just such a shitty situation. So the judge orders Elias to be taken to the Wagner Detention Center, and he also wants a clinical evaluation of Elias to see if he actually understands like the charges against him, if he's mentally can understand what's going on.
If he can't aid in his own defense, like we've found before that that's a key piece of somebody being able to go to trial with these charges.
It's a pretty shitty like sight when the cops, take Elias away and he's screaming for his mom and the parents are screaming for him. Cabot
Mhm.
obviously isn't happy about this, but it's like her fucking job. Like what the fuck can she do?
Yeah, she like the level she's biting her tongue is like insane.
Right.
So they're in the squad room now, and the cat's out of the bag in the press that they're charging a 7-year-old with murder. Amnesty International, children's rights groups, like everybody's freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Cabot walks in, and Munch gives her some shit, and she's like, dude, I don't have a choice. Like, this is where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Cragen comes in with some dad shit, and he's like, why don't we quit focusing on the kid that we caught and start focusing on the adult that we didn't? And we're all
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, Cragen. So he's like, we need to figure out where he got this shit. And they need to start looking into the kids that the babysitter watches. They note that one of them has a mother who has a similar gun registered to her. So Munch and Toots go to talk to that lady, and she pulls out her gun to show them that it's in her possession, but she does it in a way that's like pretty risky in front of a couple of cops. Because they're like, do you have it? And she's like, no. Like, I've got it. And they're like, can we see it? And she's like, whoo, and basically fucking sticks him up with it.
Yeah. She was just like, I got shit to do today. This is dumb. She's yelling for her kid to hurry the fuck up. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, here's my gun, idiots. And it's like waving it around.
So they told her that concealed carry is illegal, and she's like, well, I don't. So, but she does because she carries it from work to home
Yeah.
in the middle of the night in like a not so great area. So
they're like, why don't you leave it at home? And she's like, oh yeah, so my appliances can defend themselves. Cool. She gets off work sometimes at like 3 a.m. and has to take a subway and a bus and then walk 4 blocks. So yeah, she's gonna keep a gun.
they want to talk to her son Raphael, and he's a child as well, but his demeanor to me makes him seem like he's older.
He's like 32 emotionally.
Like his demeanor makes him seem like he's seen a lot, you
Mhm.
know? And basically just what he says, because they ask him if he knows what happened, and he says, yeah, Elias popped that little girl. And I'm like, ooh, that's cold blooded.
He had a glass of scotch and he was smoking a cigar and he was like, yeah.
Hold on, I'm putting bets on the ponies.
Ma, is the risotto done?
Risotto?
I don't know.
He had a gold chain. Oh my God, you know what I just watched?
Italian leather shoes. What?
Italian leather shoes. I watched The Saga of Danny Hernandez.
Why do I
It's
know
about
that?
fucking Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Uh,
It's a documentary
This is about that kid
'cause
that
you
has
know
all
how
those shitty tattoos on his face, and then he's like, "Oh, I kind of got in a little bit of trouble. I'm gonna tell on everybody."
Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen it. I don't know much about it except for like that little synopsis of it.
It's a whole new world that I didn't know about, and it was super interesting.
Hmm.
And also, like, I kind of feel bad for him at the end of it, even though it wasn't painting him in a great light at all.
Just because he was a narc, or I don't know. I don't know really
No, he
anything.
was like he was gonna get murdered.
By
But
who?
he's also like a hardcore troll, you know, like it was like trolling gone too far.
I don't know what's going on.
You really should watch it. It's like
Probably not. I don't know. Whenever you tell me that, I'm always like, no, I don't want to watch it. And then I watch it and I'm like, yes. Okay, so now they're at the precinct. I'm guessing they're in like the forensics ballistics area, I think.
yeah,
So this gun is like lightweight, compact, and hammerless.
hair trigger.
Yeah, Benson points out how easy it is to use. So the safety was tampered with. The bullet that came back from Carly's autopsy showed it was hollow point, and like there was an X that was like filed down by hand. And Benson's like, she didn't fucking stand a chance.
Yeah.
So this guy, the fucking forensic guy, he compares bullets from a different murder of a 23-year-old, and it's from the same gun that was killed Carly. So there's another body attached to this gun.
Yeah, there was a 23-year-old that was killed the night before.
Yes. Mhm.
Bingo. Lead time.
Yep.
Right?
So the 23rd precinct, I'm guessing it's homicide. They're at homicide. It's murder house. And they're talking to the
That
captain.
sounds like a really badass place to work. Or it sounds like a Halloween themed store. They're talking to a super New Yorkie cop, and he's like, Shorty Esposito was shot the night before he shot Carly. Wait,
Mhm.
no. Shorty Esposito was shot the night before last shot. Yeah, Shorty Esposito was shot the night before. You know, I'm saying it like a fucking Kennedy. All I remember is he called him Shorty.
Shoddy. Yeah.
Anyway, he was shot the night before Carly was shot. Yeah, and then they call someone Shorty. Like his name's
His name's
never mind.
Shorty.
No,
Yeah.
no, never mind. That was from the Tekashi 6ix9ine thing that I watched.
God.
Because somebody's name was Shotty, and then they said something about a shorty, and I was like, oh, you guys.
We're not.
But yeah, that's not this.
We can't talk about that 6ix9ine guy for the rest of the
I'm
episode.
not.
It's too much.
I need you to watch it though.
Okay.
I really do.
I'll report to you in a year and a half.
please.
Okay, so Shorty was dumped in an alley a few blocks from where Elias lives. The case is cold, and they were hoping Elias was the one who did it. Like, not hoping, but like thinking they were close it. They were like, fingers crossed for the 7-year-old. So the ME makes the killer 4-inch taller than Shorty, so it couldn't have been Elias. And then Olivia asks if they want to swap fives, and I have no idea what that means. Did you get
Swap fives?
Yeah, she's like, do you want to swap fives? And they like hand each other paperwork, and I have no idea what that means.
Oh, I thought she said swap files.
Oh, they did swap files, but I heard fives. And I was like, that's some cop talk I don't know shit about. That was like an easy one. And I really like thought about it hard. I like paused and was like, what does that mean?
Turn on your goddamn closed captioning.
No.
Okay. Well, we're just going to keep running into this. So they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Crime scene photos. Shorty, the guy who was shot the night before, is wearing these gray and white camo pants, which is the exact pattern of the pants in the picture that Elias drew before killing Carly. What?
Elias saw a moida. Now they're at a newspaper stand. Benson and Stabler are talking to the newsstand guy, showing him a picture of Shorty. And he's like, yeah, I've seen him on the block. They're like, what does he do? And he's like, he likes long walks on the beach. I don't fucking know. I just see him.
Oh, this guy was so fucking annoying.
Yeah, he's like, I just see him around. Whenever he sees him, he's coming out of Nestor's, which is, it's like a grocery store.
It looks like,
It looks like a grocery store. Yeah. Benson and Stabler pop in. So Nikki Crow owns the business. Nestor, I guess, was the guy that sold it to him a year earlier. And it's like a religious supply store for the practice of Santeria.
Yeah.
He knows Shorty.
Benson notes the chickens and that she's assuming they're sacrificial chickens.
Mhm.
And he's like, goes right into the legality of everything.
Mhm.
And Stabler's like, whatever, dude, we're not the ASPCA. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I feel like I remember there being a SVU that involved this. No, it was something else. Okay.
Was it that Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary?
Yeah, it was. Oh, they show him a picture of Shorty and he's like, "Yeah, I know him." And they're like, "Well, he's dead." So this guy is like a quote unquote priest. I'm not sure what, but Stabler's being kind of dumb. He's just being shitty. I don't know. He's just being a little shitty and like suspicious.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "Dude, 300,000 people in New York practice Santeria. Like, I'm allowed to have a store."
Right. At the end, he kind of just confesses to like, I'm an atheist store owner, but
Mhm.
I'm supplying to like, there's a demand here. So I own a
Oh,
store. This is what I'm doing. And I know the fucking law.
that's it. Yeah.
Freedom of religion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So Benson and Stabler walk out like, oh, shucks, kind of frustrated to meet up with Munch and Toots on the street. And they've been scoping the drug dealing on the corner. Toots proceeds to give the middle American audience the New Yorker rundown of the operation. And he's like, that guy right there in the corner, that's the steerer. He brings the buyer to the money man. And him hanging back with the gold chain, that's the money man. He never touches the dope. And I'm like, oh, scritch, scratch, scritch. This is me taking notes.
For what? For why?
I like knowing stuff. Like, because I'm going to go to fucking Bushwick and I'm going to be like, I see what's going on over here. I saw that episode of
Jacoby,
SVU.
take notes. That's the runner.
So they're all teenagers. So they're like, maybe they know Elias through a little brother. Oh, yeah. A little boy then yells, 911. Toots goes, he's the lookout, and fucking books it after this little kid. And I don't want to be a dick about a little kid caught up in that shit, but there were 4 adults in suits and trench coats right across the street, all but making direct eye contact with you.
No, they were huddled around. If a bunch of people were in suits, black suits, huddled around and like looking over at me every now and then, I'd be like, those are fucking police.
And I'm not even doing anything.
Yeah.
Freaking Munch looks like Carmen Sandiego, but like at the top, right? I'm just saying, like, I don't want to dog on this kid. He's doing his job. It just took him a while to make them, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Before Toots can catch up to the kid, a shopkeeper grabs the child and gives a little hand. I'm sure he has no patience for this shit happening in front of his store.
Yeah.
Because it's like right on the same block.
Mm-hmm.
This guy does the heavy lifting because this kid won't give his name and claims to not know Elias or Shorty by photos or anything. The shopkeeper's like, he's Mrs. Morales' boy, Jamal. Toots takes Jamal to talk some more. And the shopkeeper tells Benson that the money man is Bobby Cruz, El Cojo. So inside this guy's shop, he is the dude they've been waiting for in this investigation. He
Mhm.
wants to tell them absolutely everything he can. He says Elias is in the shop all the time with an 18 or 19-year-old boy they call Sweetness because he likes candy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he gets into a lot of dangerous shit, this Sweetness, but I think it's a cute little nickname.
Yeah. They're at the precinct. They find out the kid Sweetness is 19. He was put in foster care when he was 8. Since then, it's been truancy, shoplifting, and then he moved up to drugs, larceny, gun possession. His given name is Antonio Strada, and his great grandmother is Mrs. Strada.
The babysitter!
They're at Mrs. Strada's house. Mrs. Strada tells Benson and Stabler her great grandson has nothing to do with Carly's death. I'm already starting to be like, oh, fuck. You do suck, Mrs. Strada.
Yeah. And she's a little too cool.
Yeah, she's doing the grandma thing, like, this is my boy, and it's like, don't. So she insists that he's changed and he's getting his life together. He helps her with the kids. He takes them to the park. He takes them to the candy store. And they're like, do you know that candy store that he takes the kids to is on a known drug corner? And she didn't know that. Stabler tells her the last time her great grandson got in trouble for gun stuff, he was with Shorty and they did time together. They're like, just fucking tell us where he is. And she's like, okay, he had a terrible childhood, but just can you please not hurt him? They're at Sweetness's apartment building. The music is getting all swelly and crazy. Something's gonna happen. My nips immediately get hard. Just kidding. They weren't. Benson is just kidding. They weren't. I'm so sad. Benson and Stabler are knocking on Sweetness's door. For some reason, they just open it. There's blood on the walls. Everything's fucking been tore up. Stabler sees an open window and crawls down the fire escape. He's like, party's down here. It was so weird. So Stabler finds Sweetness all bloody in the alley. He's alive, but he has his throat cut. And Stabler's like, who did this to you? Who cut you, Sweetness? He's trying to talk and he whispers some shit into Stabler's ear and then dies in Stabler's arms. So Stabler thinks he said, my shed, but what he was saying was machete, like machete, like Spanish for machete.
Yeah. Okay, so Benson, Stabler, and Cabot are in Cragen's office, and they're all explaining to Cabot that the drawing Elias did wasn't premeditation, but actually the image of Shorty's murder. He witnessed it and wants to tell, but he's seen what happens to those who talk in that world, so he hasn't said anything this whole
Mhm.
time. Cabot's got her hands tied because of her boss pushing to make an example of the kid, and they need him to speak on Shorty's murder.
Mhm.
And apparently he wasn't held then. He was able to go home until the hearing because his lawyer won the motion. So Cragen sends them out on it. Benson and Stabler are at Elias's family home. The Barreras and their lawyer are like, fuck if you're talking to him. Voice of Reason Olivia calmly shows the parents the drawing and says that they believe Elias witnessed a murder the night before shooting Carly. And they're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
And they're going to let them talk
Yeah.
to him. And Stabes is going to be the one to do
Mhm.
it. And he gently gets the whole story out of Elias. He was with Sweetness running around, who has apparently been using him as a little bag
Mhm.
man. He says, he puts little bottles in my
Mm.
pockets, which I assume are like crack vials,
I don't know. I
right?
have no idea what goes in.
They're like these little glass.
I was thinking like little things of like Fireball or something. Like I don't,
No, they're like really tiny. They're like,
that's what crack goes into.
yeah, I would imagine them being sold at the
Yeah.
craft store. Like Shorty and Sweetness are going into fucking Michael's and they're like, how many of these do you have in stock? Because that's where you get like the little baggies too for meth.
What if somebody went up to a drug dealer and got some crack in the little vial and was like, "Oh, cute. I'm gonna put some little pebbles in this after I do all this crack."
I'm gonna put this in my fairy garden.
But what if the drug dealer was like, "I know, right?
He's like, I just got this little gnome too. I
Yeah,
couldn't help it.
I'm gonna fill these little bottles with different colored sand."
During the situation, Sweetness told Elias to stay in the room. Elias didn't, and he saw Machete shoot Shorty. And he doesn't know Machete, but he heard Shorty call him that. So it's not like it's a guy that he knew. He just heard his name
Mhm.
said. He said the shot was quiet because Machete did it through a pillow. And he then hid the gun and took off when he heard sirens. Sweetness cleaned up the body and took it out in a big suitcase while Elias hid in a closet.
Mhm.
Elias took the gun because he didn't want Machete to come back and kill him too.
I
He's so
I know.
little. He was just like so little. Elias told Staves it happened when his sister was in the hospital. He was staying with.
Mrs. Strata.
So Benson and Stabler head back to Mrs. Strata's place. She's all flustered, but says she was asleep between 10 and midnight that night, and her meds knock her out pretty
Mm.
hard. They go in, and forensics is already like balls to the wall in the apartment. They're spraying luminol. They turn all the lights off. They pull out their fucking
UV thing.
yeah, and they see blood with wheel marks in it. And Benson goes, like wheels on a big ass suitcase.
I know. I didn't catch that until I watched it earlier today. I was like, "Yeah, did she just say
Yeah.
big ass suitcase?"
So the Elias story is coming together, and they want to check out why Elias heard sirens that night. Because the sirens were going off not because the cops were coming for that fucking shooting, it
Mhm.
was something else. So they're like, we got to figure out this part of it. They're putting the pieces together.
Yep. So Benson and Stabler are at the 15th Precinct Detective Squad. A fluffy-haired beat cop. This guy's hair was so. I wish you could watch it again because his hair was so fucking fluffy. He was like,
Rick Joyner.
yeah.
I just picture your dad when you say fluffy hair.
Okay, a fluffy-haired beat cop tells Benson and Stabler the cops were called for a party that got out of hand. There was a brawl and it had spilled out into the courtyard. There were 35 statements. Benson and Stabler were like, okay, we're taking these. Because that was like the same time Machete took off. They were taking statements of anybody that left the building.
Yeah, so they were thinking that Machete left the building at the same time, so he may have been stopped as well.
So they're in Cragen's office. Benson and Stabler have eliminated 28 names on the list based on the age and gender.
I love when they do these little rundowns on SVU. Like they love doing
And
it
then they're
too.
like, we already did this, this, and this, and this. Let's like that, you mean?
Yeah, where they're like, all right, 35 names. We narrowed it down to 8 because of this. And then we narrowed it down from there by people's records. And then,
Yeah.
it's fun to hear.
Yeah.
We started with a list of 2,000 possible perps. Now we're down to 2 guys, and one of them is in Europe. So then they like know the guy.
Yeah.
It just makes it sound like it happened really fast, but really they've been spending like a full week with no sleep
Yeah,
on it.
for sure this was one because they were like, we already talked to all 28 people. We're down to 8. And it's like, we missed a few fucking days,
Yeah.
So Benson and Stabler had eliminated 28 names on the list based on like Elias's descriptions. 8 suspects are left, 5 of which have records and mugshots, and Elias recognized 2 of them.
Cragen is in a fucking mood.
Yeah.
Because he goes, unless I'm one of them, I don't know why you're standing here.
So Elias was positive neither of them were Machete, and the 3 that were left without records were Kyung Kwan, who's the owner of the market that gave all the IDs to them earlier, Nikki Crow, the fucking religious store clerk guy, and Bobby Cruz, the other kid that was like standing on the corner, that the El Cojo guy or whatever. So first of all, this is really weird that they're all partying together, by the way.
Oh, but they're all from the same neighborhood. I guess, like, why was Kyung Kwan
That's
with
what
them,
I would
though?
like.
He's, like, annoyed with everybody. He probably just lives in the same building.
Yeah.
Maybe he was, like, getting his mail, and he's like, "Oh, I hate that this party's going on. I'm making note of it just in case a cop has to ask me about it tomorrow."
Yeah. So
No, he came out of his apartment. He came out of his apartment because there was a party going on, and it was getting crazy, and then he saw the cops, and he's like, "I'm gonna tell them everything that I heard."
I'm sure
That's exactly.
after, like, Benson Stabler left his market, Bobby Cruz was like, "Hey, like, where are you still coming to that kegger tonight?" Or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys need to chill out."
Get off my corner.
So Kragen's like, was Kyung Wong too helpful to Benson and Stabler, like where it was suspicious? And then watches like Nikki Crow profits off the piety of local Santeros, and then Stabler's like, Bobby Cruz is a drug dealer. That's it.
Yeah.
Kragen's like, Elias needs some fucking points with the DA office. Let's see if we can do a walk by.
To ID Machete,
Yeah.
which is fucking
Yeah.
scary.
So they're on the street. It's at night. Benson and Stabler have Elias in like a weird little piglet mask. It's super cute.
It's the creepiest fucking pig mask with a top hat on.
I thought it was cute.
I thought it was
Okay.
horrific. It looks like one of those, like, Kewpies you would draw,
Yeah,
though.
this is to cover his identity. They're gonna like, it's nighttime and they're gonna like walk him around this fucking shitty neighborhood to see if they can ID Machete. But here's the fucking thing I have a problem with. His lawyer's with him, by the way.
Mhm.
Benson and Stabler have already talked to these people, so they're gonna know that that fucking little kid with the pig mask on is Elias, and they know who Elias's lawyer is because this shit is all over the media and everybody knows about it. You would just think they would have gotten like some plainclothes cops to like
Oh,
make it
yeah.
less obvious that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it was stupid.
That is stupid. I didn't put all that
Because the
together.
first place they go into is to Nikki Crow's place. They already
Mhm.
talked to him. He remembers who they are, and they just have this little kid in tow.
Yeah.
No.
This is my son I'm taking out on dangerous cop stuff. Don't mind the pig mask.
we're going to get a sacrificial chicken. Cool. It's like, don't mind
He
the.
wears a piglet mask because he's ugly as shit.
It's the purge tonight. I don't know if you knew that. Stabler's like, okay, squeeze my hand if you see somebody that looks like Machete.
Yeah, so they're going into the Santeria shop. Nikki Crow comes out, and Elias immediately squeezes the shit out of Stabler's hand, and they send Elias out with his lawyer and go to arrest Nikki,
Did you see the sweet spin move Stabler did?
where he like hands off. Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect.
So Nikki tries to bribe Benson and Stabler with a brick of fucking cash,
Mhm.
begging them not to arrest him.
This is fucking SVU, dude. Not gonna work.
Yeah, this is he's like, cost of doing business. And I'm like, not these cops, Nikki. That's right. But that worked out great because Stabes is like, that right there is a class B felony.
Mhm.
So now they can fucking hold him even if they can't figure it out for a minute
Mhm.
because he just tried to bribe a couple of fucking
Yep.
cops.
So we're in the office of Dr. Elizabeth Olivet.
How much do you want? All of it.
She's a child psychologist or something. She's talking to Elias. She's telling Elias that he's safe
Mhm.
now and Machete's in jail. They really need to get this fucking kid to talk.
Yeah.
She asks him how he felt the day of the shooting, and he draws this like little picture of him being scared. He starts talking, and he says that he had seen Machete and those like dudes on the fence. So it was those guys that were talking to the kid. So I watched it a second time. You do see Machete in the way back. He thinks that they came to hurt him, and he actually wasn't shooting at Carly. He was shooting at Machete. He's like, "What do you think's going to happen to me?" And then she says, "What do you think should happen?" Which I think is like a really weird thing to say to a 7-year-old.
I think that in this kind of situation, they are trying to get stuff out. Like, you can't ask leading questions, and there's like a very specific way to talk to a kid to get them to talk
Mhm.
openly and truthfully, you know? So I do think it's a weird question to ask a kid, but I think that it's
Just how they have to go about it.
like how he will respond to it is going to be very
Yeah.
telling.
So he starts scribbling like red all around the person he thinks he's going to burn in hell.
Yeah, and I want that one super confident, expensive lawyer from a couple episodes ago to pop his head in and go, "Hey, kid, good news. There is no hell."
Oh, Yeah. So Cabot's back at the office of her boss, Charlie Phillips, or whatever the fuck.
Chief Assistant DA Chuck Phil.
Old Chucky Phil. Old Chucky Philly. He's like, I know why you're here. And she's like, I'm not fucking picking up a case. I want to drop Elias's. And he's like, fuck no. She's like, we only got Machete because of the drawing. The vice principal corroborates Elias's story. Those fucking dudes were there. And he was trying to shoot them, not Carly. It was self-defense. And she was like, Carly was a tragedy, but not an intention.
Right. The whole time they're having this conversation, it's a walk and talk.
Yeah.
Which matters.
Yeah. And he's like, no, well, just fine. Amend it to manslaughter. And she's like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not going to prosecute a child for like a series of society's mistakes.
Yeah. They're going down the elevator and she's arguing with super valid points how things led to this because every one of our systems suck. But he's a fucking dick and responds with, yeah, I doubt anyone at Sing Sing had a real great childhood. And Cabot's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, she's pissed and she's like, you're fucking unbelievable. And he does this like hilarious shoulder flop. I think I sent it to you.
I didn't. You sent me like a short clip of it and you're like, look at his little shoulders.
He like does this like, no, like throws his shoulders back and he's like, I'm second in command and I have the DA's full support in this.
Someone needs to be held responsible because that's what the people want. And it's not about what's right.
Yep. So he goes on stage. All the media that exists is there.
This is like at the end of their walk too. Like they're like she's walking into a trap is what's happening.
100%. Yeah. So he says to them that he's placing full authority into the worthy hands of a person who has been intimately involved in every aspect of the case from the beginning and fucking walks over to Cabot. Oh.
And throws her under the bus.
Yeah. Where they're in the squad room and everyone's watching on TV.
They're all like, what the fuck, CADA Chuck Phil?
Munch is like, he fucking hung her out to dry, dude.
This is not a word I've ever used, but the only one I can think of is she is fucking gobsmacked by this announcement. And she goes through the motions of stepping up to the podium and trying to take it on, like answering fucking tough questions.
Either way, she loses.
Yeah.
Half the people are gonna hate her and half the people are gonna think it was a great idea. There's nothing she can do.
There's nothing they can do to help Cabot. And Cragen says that Cabot needs to look at alternate solutions. And then there was this really quick scene where Cabot's in Dr. Liz Olivet's office.
Just a reminder, though, that she's that little, like, child psychologist. Yeah.
Just a little child psychologist.
Little baby child psychologist.
They drink some tea, hate on the boys club, and Olivet gives Cabot some advice on not making war, but making peace. And Cabot's like,
yeah.
Light bulb. So they're at the family court capacity hearing to determine whether Elias can even go to trial. Both state examiners say that Elias is competent to stand trial. He understands right and wrong. He also understands the roles of everyone in the court process, which bullshit because I don't even understand everybody's roles. Dr. Olivet is then on the stand and agrees that those assessments are true, but she doesn't believe that he was aware of that when he pulled the trigger. And the defense is then done with their questions. Cabot gets up and hands Dr. Olivet Elias's drawing of himself scared in fiery hell. And I don't want to take away from the weight of this moment, but they show the drawing and it's a glass of orange juice situation because the person has more hair, the fire squiggles are bolder. The continuity was destroyed for me, and now I don't care about what happens to this kid.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm gonna post the pictures because it's clearly two different drawings. Clearly,
it's the hairline. Come on.
Oh my god, the eyes. They were like Elias. I watched him make circles, and these ones were like squigglies. I was like, this is bullshit. Electric chair. Put this kid in the electric chair. Okay, sorry.
If they don't think that we're gonna see it, we're gonna see it. And we know Elias is the shooter. Elias is fucking Nikki the Santeria store owner, and he unzips and outsteps a 7-year-old boy.
Oh my god.
But then he unzips and outsteps a tiny dictator with a cigar and a white suit.
Wearing a pig mask with a top hat. It was him the whole time.
It's a piglet wearing a top hat. It is Pig Monopoly guy. That's who did it.
And then unzip that, and it's 3 chickens. And they all go for Tasha's face. Okay.
So Cabot leads Olivet down a line of questioning that allows the doctor to explain all kids have some concept of right and wrong. And the explanation for his lapse in judgment was mortal fear and imitating behavior. So he was imitating behavior without understanding it. And she bases it all on his age and development. Cabot tells her she can step down. She does. And Cabot takes this like huge breath. And she goes, the people defer to Dr. Olivet's findings that the minor lacked the capacity to understand the consequences of his actions and therefore should not be held responsible. Murmurs ripple across the courtroom. Cut to Carly's mom, rip my fucking heart out. Cut to Elias's parents. It's lose-lose. Although I completely agree with what Dr. Olivet said and what Cabot did with it, seeing Carly's mom get just gut punched and see zero justice in the loss of her 7-year-old daughter.
I know. I was wondering how that something like that like does she sue the parents for some sort of like
Yeah, well, that's shit that happens then. They go to civil court as the next step, which
if they're
doesn't
under
do
18,
anything.
you'd think the parents are responsible then, you know?
Yeah. So gavel slam, case closed. There isn't one. Cabot walks out of the courthouse surrounded by reporters and cameras, just like a mob of press yelling at her. And Carly's mom quietly steps up. Everyone's quiet, and Cabot steps aside. And Carly's mom says that she's grateful for their support, but tells them to go home and take care of their children. I got
Ugh, I know.
viscerally emotional.
Yeah.
So then the next scene is Cabot walking into the precinct and Munch greeting her by calling her Teflon.
Mhm.
And they're all like jovial, telling her, great job. And they ask her to come along to McMullen's for a celebratory drink. She's one of the crew. Cragen turns his back to answer a phone,
Oh god, I
but
know. I
really just
was
holding it against his ear.
yeah.
Nobody talks on the end of the phone that we watch. Every time we see someone pick up a fucking phone, I think it's a season 2 Easter egg because every single episode, someone's picked up a phone, not moved their mouth, and then hung it up with a bunch of information. So Toots asks Cragen if he's coming, and rude, he's on the phone. Okay. Tutsuola. But Cragen just like his back still to camera. He slowly hangs up the phone and hangs his head. And I'm like, ugh, fucking great.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what happened? What the fuck happened?
I'm like, I doubt we're going for beer and cheese curds now, guys.
So Benson and Stabler pull up to the scene. Fucking Elias was trying to play ball with some kids in the neighborhood and he was shunned and was walking away alone and he was killed by a 12-year-old named TJ, a neighbor.
So TJ's a little kid too, and he's being drugged to a cop car and he's yelling, you can't kill a sister and get away with it. And Benson's like, the cycle continues. And Staves is like, welcome to the Gaza Strip.
I didn't understand that.
I didn't either. I know the Gaza Strip is like tough.
Yeah.
But that's the end.
Yep.
That's the end. Elias is dead. Fucking hate it.
Yeah.
So, because this episode mentioned Columbine, that's what we're going to talk about.
Boo. Just kidding. I'm excited to
Yeah.
hear about it.
Last time Columbine was mentioned, we took note of it and we were like, this will be brought up again. So, like, we don't need to do the chaser on it. I don't remember what I did the chaser on that episode, but we were like, we're going to cover it at some point. And today is the day. So, here we go.
Okay. Oh, I'm already
And
pissed. Okay, go ahead.
It's a lot. Like, there is so much information on the Columbine shooting that it was really hard to fucking sift through all of it. Eric Harris was born April 9th, 1981. His perfect. Are you joking?
Yes. No. I didn't know their names. I don't know their names.
Oh, okay. His dad was a transport pilot for the US Air Force, so the family moved around a lot, as a lot of military families do. Eric was resentful about moving so much, and the most difficult for him was the move from New York to Colorado in 1993 when his dad retired from the military. So in 7th grade in Colorado, Eric met and became friends with Dylan Klebold. Dylan Klebold was born September 11th, 1981.
Is he the other shooter? Is he going to be the other shooter? He is.
No, this is actually the story of Dr. Seuss and his best friend Eric Harris.
Perfect.
No, I thought you were going to gasp because Dylan Klebold was born on September 11th.
No, that is fucked up.
His parents were both pacifists and Lutherans. His dad was an engineer and his mother worked in assistance services with disabled children. Dylan was in gifted programs as a child. He was in Cub Scouts, played soccer, baseball. You would have called him a well-rounded kid. Dylan and Eric spent tons of their time together. They were inseparable. People described Eric as charismatic and likable. It was also said that he was quick to anger, and in the recordings later dubbed the basement tapes, he had bragged about his ability to deceive people, stating that he could make anyone believe anything. And Dylan, on the other hand, dealt with a crippling shyness, rarely opening up to others. So, again, these guys were inseparable best friends. Classmates actually really seemed to like Dylan, but his journals, everybody kept a fucking journal,
Wait,
apparently, at this
Dylan
time.
is the shy one.
Dylan's the shy one. It's crazy finding out, like, there's so many psychological studies that have been done on these two because there's so much written information from themselves because of the journaling that they were really able to put together, like, a profile of each of them. So classmates actually really seemed to like Dylan, but his journals made it clear that he didn't see that. He would often say that he wasn't accepted or loved, but that's another like normal
teeny thing.
Seemingly normal teeny thing.
Yeah.
In January of 1998, the two boys broke into a van to steal computers and electronic equipment. They both incurred a number of charges, but they each left good impressions on the juvenile officers. So they were able to have their records expunged and were discharged early from their probationary programs for good behavior.
Okay.
This was something that people referenced a lot, as Eric had written this letter of apology, and it had been picked apart later on because it was like the stark opposite of what he wrote in his journal, which was like, fuck that guy, what a fucking asshole, what an idiot, leaving his shit sitting out in his van, fuck that piece of shit. And his letter was like not only of like seemingly genuine remorse, but also a desire to change behavior and like all of these things that he didn't need to put into a letter of apology, but he like got off on lying to people. He like enjoyed the feeling of deceiving people. In December of 1998, Harris and Klebold made Hitmen for Hire. It was a video where they acted as characters who were violent, aggressive, and acted out shooting and killing students in the hallways of Columbine High School. Because they were like in film program stuff, and my friends and I made movies when we were in high school. Like the fucked up thing is that we go back and look at what these guys did, and we're like, oh, they made a movie where they were hitmen, like shooting people in the school, and none of the stuff, the journals, the attitude that Eric had toward this fucking guy when they got in trouble, like none of that stuff would seem weird, you know? But then when it's all put together with like where it culminated to, it's super fucked up stuff.
Yeah, when it's all put together.
So, April 20th, 1999. This date it's not something that I have to look up because I remember it like it was yesterday, first of all. April 20th is my mom's birthday.
And Hitler's birthday.
And it's also, what?
And Hitler's birthday.
And you think I don't know that my mom was born on the same day as Hitler? Of course I know that. It's also 420, so a normal April 20th was a pretty busy day for high school, Tasha. So initially the intended day for the massacre at Columbine was Monday, April 19th, 1999. It was to fall on the same day as the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing when Timothy McVeigh bombed and killed 168 people. At this time, school shooting wasn't a term that we all knew yet. It wasn't the first, but at this point, it was the most deadly, and it was also the first to play out on live television. There were also the infamous basement tapes. Between the days of March 15th to April 20th, 1999, the two made a series of videos detailing their plans and discussing their reasoning. There are detailed reports on these tapes, but they were destroyed in early 2011 because everyone decided that they don't need to be seen or heard.
Why?
But they are transcribed, so you can read all of it.
Why would they fucking destroy those?
Ultimately, they were like, yeah, that would probably be really shitty. We don't need their fucking video manifesto to be out here, because that's the thing, is they want to be heard. And also, these guys planned this for like a year. They had journals, drawings, blueprints, just plans for months, which is another psychologically surprising when looked at because it wasn't impulsive.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it ended up playing out that day was, okay, in an article I read called Columbine and the Myth of the School Shooter, writer Stephen Cromack puts it in pretty clear context. He said, quote, "After everything, the FBI concluded that Eric Harris was a psychopath who had no empathy, narcissistic traits, and unconstrained aggression. Harris's diary suggested that he was launching an act of domestic terrorism whose roots extended back through the bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building in 1995 and the 1993 standoff between federal authorities and a cult known as the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas." Well, and as you know, the Oklahoma City bombing was on the anniversary of Waco.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Timothy McVeigh did that on purpose.
Waco was on a 420 as well? Or no,
No. April 19th.
Yeah. Whoa, I didn't know that they all...
April 19th, 1993, and then Oklahoma City happened April 19th, 1995. Dave Cullen is the journalist who spent over 10 years studying Columbine. He wrote, quote, "In his journal, Eric would brag about topping McVeigh. Oklahoma City was a one-note performance. McVeigh set his timer and walked away. He didn't even see his spectacle unfold." The word psychopath is used for Eric Harris in the most scientific terms. I'm going to read this excerpt from a Slate.com article I read called "The Depressive and the Psychopath."
Okay.
In popular usage, almost any crazy crazy killer is a psychopath, but in psychiatry, it's a very specific mental condition that rarely involves killing or even psychosis. Psychopaths are not disoriented or out of touch with reality, nor do they experience the delusions, hallucinations, or intense subjective distress that characterize most other mental disorders, writes Dr. Robert Hare in Without Conscience, the seminal book on the condition. He goes on to say, unlike psychotic individuals, psychopaths are rational and aware of what they are doing and why. Their behavior is the result of choice, freely exercised. Diagnosing Harris as a psychopath represents neither a legal defense nor a moral excuse, but it illuminates a great deal about the thought process that drove him to mass murder.
Yeah, it's like
I felt like that was really important to say because, yeah, I'm going to talk about Eric Harris being a psychopath and Dylan Klebold being like insanely depressed. Those are not excuses. And it's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's an explanation, not an excuse.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, yeah.
As big as it was, like, experts and people wanted to understand, like, what would drive them to do that. Dylan Klebold was concluded to be an angry depressive with low self-esteem. He also had anxiety and a vengeful attitude toward those he believed mistreated him. So his journal was full of suicidal writings, venting rants about not being accepted, and stories of unrequited love. So he's like your classic incel.
Yeah.
One of the most disturbing things I read was that psychiatrists who deeply studied those two said that without Eric, Dylan would never have done something like this.
Yeah.
These experts speculated that Dylan may have eventually been caught for some petty crime and, if had gotten help, could have just been a normal dude living a normal life.
Right.
But the same psychiatrists say that because of Eric's sick mind and lack of a conscience, he would have gone on developing this drive and gone on to do something else unspeakably atrocious. Like, he could have been a serial killer or any number of, like, fucked up thing. Depending on whatever road he went down, he was going to end up doing something fucked up and awful. So,
is there a possibility that he could have ended up doing something, like, awesome, super awesome? Like, it's either, like, you either gonna be, like, a mastermind criminal or a mastermind, like, scientist or something?
well, the thing that made that dangerous is because he completely lacked empathy. I read something somewhere they were talking about, like, the condition that they ended up deciding he had, the way they described it, and this is a fucked up way to describe it, so, like,
Hold on to your britches.
but they said that
What?
people that have this lack of emotion or lack of empathy are the same people that can cut up a human body and they don't see it any different than, like, carving a Thanksgiving turkey.
He's
like, they have the same level of emotion.
Like
None.
Dextered out.
Yeah.
Okay.
He would have no internal conflict if he had to do something fucked up to a person or he chose to do something fucked up to a person. There was no conflict in him at all.
Yeah.
So that's why he wouldn't have gone on to do something awesome. He would have gone, it would have been he was too sick. Again, not an excuse. He was just a fucked up person missing something in his brain. Okay, April 20th, 1999. At about 11:10 a.m., Dylan and Eric arrived at Columbine High School and parked their cars loaded with explosives at two separate exits. The first person to see them was Brooks Brown, a classmate. He was outside smoking and started giving Eric shit about missing this huge test they had that morning, and Eric laughed and said, "It doesn't matter anymore. Brooks, I like you now. Get out of here. Go home."
Whoa. Okay.
Dylan and Eric walked into the cafeteria with duffel bags that contained homemade pipe bombs set to go off at 11:17 during a lunch. Because you know how, like,
yeah, A and B.
Yeah, you have like a early lunch, late lunch. This is when the cafeteria was most crowded. As many as 600 people were scheduled to be in that space when the bombs were set to go off.
600 kids?
People, including staff and whatever. I think it was like in the mid 400s that were actually there at that time. It was like they accounted like 433 that were there, but as many as 600 could be in that space at one time during a lunch.
Oh my God.
So these bombs were set to go off at this time. They never did.
Okay.
The bombs that did go off were ones that they set in a field about 3 miles from the school as a diversion. So a 911 call was made at 11:19 to report the field explosion. And that was just to get cops
over there
to buy themselves time.
Yeah.
So after their cafeteria bombs didn't detonate, they changed their plan. From here on out, it's completely different than what they were originally planning. First, they set the bombs that they had in their cars, and then they headed back to the school with 2 sawed-off shotguns, a 9mm semi-automatic carbine rifle, and a 9mm Tech DC-9 semi-automatic pistol. You know, they thought they were fucking doom.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They played that video game a lot, and they were, like, just decked out with ammo and shit.
Hold on. So
outside...
can I ask another question? Before that, what was their plan? They were just going to blow up and then not shoot people, or just blow up?
Their original plan was to blow up the school during lunch with a concentrated group in that room and then sit outside and shoot any survivors attempting to flee the school. They also had their cars strategically placed at 2 main exit points, which were also supposed to be triggered to detonate, leaving like one exit for people to leave from, which is where they were going to shoot people from. So outside the 2 opened fire. Rachel Scott and Daniel Rohrbaugh were shot and killed. This is a quote from Brooks Brown. Quote, "I went to go have my cigarette and heard gunshots, so I took off and started running. I went to random houses, called the cops, and told them I knew who it was. It was Eric. It had to have been." So the kid that passed by them
That was like,
dude, what are you doing? You know, you weren't in class. And he told him to leave, and he's like, whatever. And then he heard gunshots. So just how fucked, dude.
Yeah.
Teacher Peggy Dodd looked out the library window and saw Dylan, quote, standing on the hill just shooting. She saw him holding a gun with both hands and was shooting using a sweeping motion.
Oh my God, yeah.
Witnesses outside say that he was shooting at people on the soccer field, but nobody was physically injured there.
They were outside?
When they first started shooting, They first started shooting people outside.
Okay.
Because there were people like sitting outside for lunch. Kids in the cafeteria were then warned by a girl running in from outside screaming, "Someone's shooting, someone's shooting." Teacher and coach Dave Sanders had noticed, along with other staff, that there was commotion in the cafeteria, and they went in there to find out what the chaos was because kids were just like jumping up and freaking out. So he stayed and began to evacuate students. Kids left all of their shit behind to tear out of the east exit of the building. Some even ran out of their shoes attempting to flee.
Whoa.
Eric and Dylan entered the mostly empty cafeteria and opened fire, shooting Dave Sanders twice. Dave was able to get cover in a science room with another teacher and a group of students, one of which who was an Eagle Scout, who then attempted life-saving first aid, but sadly the SWAT team did not get to him in time and he ended up bleeding to death. So this kid, Greg Barnes, was watching through a science room window, like watching them in the cafeteria, saw his coach, because he was an athlete, so he knew this coach well, saw him because he stayed to help kids, was shot, and then he ended up dying, and Greg killed himself 2 weeks later.
Jesus.
Like, imagine like, the fucking trauma, you know?
Holy shit.
Though Dave Sanders' death was among the reasons protocol was changed in these types of situations, because if SWAT would have gotten to him sooner, could have very likely survived his injuries.
Can you imagine being the parent of that athlete where you're like, oh my God, my kid survived Columbine, and then 2 weeks later, like, it's fucking awful.
All right, so this is when police began to arrive, and the shooters periodically exchanged fire with them throughout the rest of this time. Many students were able to escape at this time and huddled behind Deputy Scott Taborski's squad car, and they were reporting to him about the 2 gunmen in black trench coats with Uzis and hand grenades. The shooters went through the school terrorizing and shooting classmates. Witnesses say they remember seeing the boys and at first thought they had prop guns and were maybe filming something because, again, they were doing that kind of shit. Another surviving student said that he thought it was a senior prank and they had paintball guns. So Eric and Dylan also had backpacks full of homemade pipe bombs and Molotov cocktails that they were throwing around as they ransacked the high school. Okay, so at this point, police were outside and getting information from those who had fled the building. They had also set up a triage at Yukon Street and Cali Avenue for the many that fled injured. 911 dispatch was also getting insider information from teacher Patty Nielsen, who had been shot but escaped to the library where she told everyone there to hide. And the library was always super busy at this time. Everybody's got some sort of a break. They're hanging out. They're doing homework. They're reading. They're like sitting around with friends. She told them all to hide. There were 3 staff members and 55 students in the library. Patty hid behind the checkout desk and would stay on the phone with 911 for the duration of the shooting. Eric and Dylan entered the library at 11:29 a.m.
Oh my God.
They stalked through the library, terrorizing and shooting, killing Kyle Velasquez, Steve Kernow, Cassie Bernal. Possibly the biggest piece of wildfire misinformation was that 17-year-old Cassie Bernal was asked by one of the shooters, Eric, if she believed in God, and she said yes before being shot to death. This narrative placed her at the forefront of the evangelical movement, And I remember hearing about this at church, on TV. Her parents wrote a book called She Said Yes. It really fed the narrative of martyrdom to Christian teens.
Right.
I believe that, but that's not me just saying that. Like, it is what it did in the movement.
Right.
The thing is, it wasn't Cassie. It was another student, Valine Schnur, who was also shot, but she survived. That was one of those myths that was pretty much immediately debunked, but people jumped on it anyway. What truly happened with her was, as she hid under a table with another girl, Eric spotted them, slapped on the table twice, and he bent down and said, "Peekaboo," and shot and killed Cassie.
Oh my fucking God.
The other girl lived.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it being something like, if you say you don't love God, I'll shoot you. And she's like, I love God, or whatever.
No, what he said to Valine was, I think she was already injured, and he was like, do you believe in God? And she's like, no, yes, just trying to answer the way he wanted to hear.
Yeah, which is completely fucking reasonable.
Yeah. He was like, why? And she goes, well, it was how I was raised, or it was how I grew up, or whatever. And I don't remember what he said, like, that's stupid or something, and shot her. The Valine thing, the crazy thing, and see, I wasn't even going to put all this stuff in there, so I don't have this other girl's name, which I really should, but Eric shot Valine, and the kickback from his gun broke his nose. So he had like blood pouring out of his nose, and then all these other kids had reported, like witness reports, they said it looked like he had been drinking blood. Can it get any fucking more terrifying, like, than that, having that visual too? But so then he went to another girl, and this is the girl, I don't have her name, but she was under a table. She was begging him not to kill her, and she's like, I have a family and a fiance or whatever. Like, he gave a shit, but it's just something you say when you have a gun in your face, Dylan was like on the other side of the room, and he's like, hey, and Eric's like, oh yeah, I fucking, my gun broke my nose or whatever. And so he was distracted because his nose hurt, and then he's talking to Dylan, and Dylan's like, then called him over to these other kids, and he didn't shoot that girl. And I read somewhere that she didn't sleep for 4 days after. Yeah. Isaiah Scholes was the next victim, and he was one of the reasons that the reports came of them targeting minorities, because they said some really disgusting racially driven things before and after shooting and killing him. The shooters went on to then kill Matthew Kechter, Lauren Townsend, John Tomlin, and Kelly Fleming. They had been in the library for 5 minutes. As they went to the center of the library to reload their weapons, Eric spotted a fellow student and commanded that he identify himself. It was an acquaintance of Dylan's, and as Dylan aimed a gun at his head, John Savage made himself known and asked Dylan what he was doing.
Yeah.
Dylan replied, oh, just killing people.
Okay.
John asked if he was going to kill him too, and Dylan told him to get out, and John took off.
Whoa.
So 2 more students would die in the library before the shooters left. Corey DePuter and Daniel Mauser. The shooters left the library with 34 students physically uninjured for some fucking reason. And there were quite a few accounts throughout the entire thing where kids said that they played dead. One I remember reading about, this kid had smeared another student's blood on his face to appear shot and killed.
Oh my God.
So the 2 then made their way back to the cafeteria, and they shot at the duffel bag bombs that had failed to detonate, and were like, it seemed there's security footage of Dylan looking like he's trying to figure it out. But the bombs just like would not go off. And they shot at one for a while, and there was flammable liquid in there, and it did end up starting a fire, but then it was put out. One thing said it was put out by a teacher, but another thing said it was put out by what is it called?
Sprinklers.
Yeah. A student hiding in the cafeteria heard one of them say, quote, today the world's going to come to an end. Today's the day we die. The Denver SWAT team arrived at 11:49 and received authorization to enter the school. A few minutes later, the entire country would know what was happening in Littleton. Live news coverage started, and I remember the teacher rolling in one of those TVs on a cart, and we turned it on and watched all of the live news coverage. Kids running from the building, huddled behind a cop car during the standoff. Like, these are images that I remember.
I remember that one guy climbing out of the window.
Yeah. I remember being confused about what I was seeing at first when we were starting to watch it, and people were like, somebody's taken people. They thought it was a hostage situation at first. I don't even remember when they were like, it's students that are doing this. The bell rang after this class was done for us to go to our next class, and we would walk in there and there would be a TV in the room and we would just continue to watch. Like we watched the footage and talked about what was happening for the rest of the school day. Like that's how we spent the day at school.
Yeah.
Like I just remember people sitting on tables and desks and just like, you know, you're not doing schoolwork, so kids fuck around. Nobody was fucking off.
Right.
Like I can see the images of the kids crying and screaming and hugging. And there was like moments where I was like, should we be watching this? The next day at school was one of just like straight mental health maintenance. And they had counselors available for all of us because we were all fucking scared. And for months after that, we went on to receive bomb threats, run drills. Like they were scared of copycats happening. And we didn't have anything in place for something like this to happen.
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson was dragged hard for influencing these guys, which wasn't a thing. Like all these goth kids got looked at extra sideways, and it's like, let them just be weird and artsy, you know?
Yeah. They're just gothy kids. They're not,
Let them be.
They're not doing shit.
So back to Columbine, although SWAT arrived at 11:49, they wouldn't begin entering until 12:06. And it was later determined that right about this time is when, after re-entering the library, shooting out windows and exchanging gunfire with police, the two shooters sat down and killed themselves. Now that was like at noon. At 4:30 in the afternoon, Eric and Dylan were found by officers with fatal self-inflicted gunshot wounds to the head. SWAT began slowly sweeping the school for survivors. In some cases, kids recall it taking extra coaxing from SWAT since the team came in all black, combat boots with big ass guns, trying to retrieve severely traumatized people.
Yeah.
Fucking, I cannot emphasize enough how insane that shit is. And people are lying underneath their dead friends, hoping that they're thought to be dead, you know?
That's so fucked. That is so fucked.
Everybody has a story, but I'm just going to, out of respect, read the list of names of the 24 physically injured that day. Brian Anderson, Richard Castaldo, Jennifer Doyle, Stephen Austin Eubanks, Nicholas Nick Foss, Sean Graves, Mackay Hall, Anne Marie Hockhalter, Patrick Ireland, Michael Johnson, Joyce Janikowski, Mark Kintgen, Lisa Kreutz, Lance Kirkland, Adam Kyler, Stephanie Munson, Patricia Patty Nielsen, Nicole Nolan, Gianna Park, Casey Rugseger, Valine Schnur, Daniel Steepleton, Evan Todd, and Mark Taylor. So here's some misinformation that was reported. One, that Eric and Dylan were members of the Trenchcoat Mafia. The Trenchcoat Mafia was a group of friends who wore trench coats because one kid's mom bought him one, and they were all like, cool, us too, bro.
Like dusters, you mean?
Yeah. This kid's mom was like, here's this weird jacket. And he's like, cool, and wore it to school. And then one of his friends was like, that's cool, I'm going to get one of those. And they were like a core group of pals. And then it was sort of like they were, you know, just like a thing. They were like outsider kids. But they had like a tight knit group of friends. Like it's in the fucking yearbook, like the Trenchcoat Mafia, because that's what, you know, kids started calling them. But most of the Trenchcoat Mafia friend group had graduated before the massacre. Eric and Dylan wore trench coats that day, so it roped in this innocent group of friends. Some of them like knew them and stuff, but they weren't a part of this at all. Misinformation piece number 2 was that they targeted popular jocks, people of color, or any other group. It was a long-time narrative that they went in with the intention to target jocks, Christians, and minorities, but it's been declared untrue for a few reasons. The extensive writing and videos that the two had made in the months prior planning of that day, these things were never directly referenced. There were, however, plenty of shitty things said about quote-unquote Christian bitches, and they used the N-word in reference to a classmate. So once the plan changed, like they did go into the library and demand that everybody with a white hat stand up, which at Columbine at the time, that was like athletes did that. You know how it's like, you know, I'm trying to think of something that like a group of young people do.
Like on Wednesdays we wear pink or whatever.
Exactly. Jocks wore white hats. And they were like, everybody with a white hat stand up. Nobody fucking moved.
So were they not going to kill themselves, but then the plan changed so drastically? Or
everything I read made it sound like they had always planned to kill themselves.
Okay.
There was no exit plan that I had seen. Like if that would be like, I'm saying it with like 95% certainty because it's possible, but I don't think so. Okay, so Eric specifically had this plan in mind, this like huge bombing plan in mind, because he wanted to become more infamous than He wanted to become more infamous than Oklahoma City mediocre cis white male loser Timothy McVeigh.
I mean, those are the ones that are always fucking blowing shit up and killing people, so.
Oh my God. Just the blandest fucking cream of wheat motherfucker.
If we're gonna be going by like stereotypes and being afraid of stereotypes, I don't know why people aren't the fuck afraid of white guys.
I mean, I am.
I am, yeah. But like, they do all the bad stuff.
Anything with a dick is terrifying.
I know, yeah.
The initial plan was not to target specific kids. There were multiple occasions on the basement tapes where they call out fellow students by name.
Mm-hmm.
So another myth about Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold is that they were isolated loners. Nope. They both had a lot of friends. They both engaged in school activities, out-of-school activities. They worked part-time jobs with some of their buddies at a pizza shop.
Mm-hmm.
They were both in a bowling league. Eric Harris was a soccer player for the school as a freshman and a sophomore, and he played recreationally after that. Dylan Klebold was in a fantasy baseball league. So a few people were attempted to be held accountable since Eric and Dylan were not willing to be held accountable. Robin K. Anderson, the girl that Dylan went to prom with, she was responsible for purchasing 2 shotguns and a high-point carbine rifle for the underage boys. She was 18.
Okay.
She said later that she didn't know what they were planning and no formal charges were ever brought against her, but that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Mark Maines was arrested for selling a Tech DC-9 semi-automatic handgun to the boys for $500. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison 4 months after the shooting. So he served about 1.5 years and then was released to a halfway house, and that was in 2002. And he had to wear...
Who was he?
Huh?
Who was he? Like a gun dealer guy or what?
Yeah. Well, he was a dude that they were introduced to by Philip Duran, who was a graduate of Columbine and worked at Blackjack Pizza with Dylan and Eric.
He sold it to them illegally, maybe?
Well, yeah, they were underage.
Oh, yeah.
But Philip Duran was the kid that they worked with at the young adult that they worked with at Blackjack Pizza, and he introduced Dylan and Eric to Mark so that they could get the gun. And Philip, he had younger siblings at Columbine during the shootings.
Oh my God.
And he pled guilty to charges for some level of facilitation for the introduction to Mark and received a 4.5-year prison sentence in 2000.
Okay, so I don't get why this chick didn't get charged with anything.
Philip Duran was paroled after 3.5 years. I don't know. Maybe she had a great lawyer. I know she bought 2 guns and gave. I have no idea.
And one guy got charged just for like facilitating, like people meeting each other. Then they knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird.
That's a good question that I didn't think of when I was reading all this shit. And finally, Chris Morris, who was a friend of the boys, he had also attended Columbine and worked with them at Blackjack Pizza. He was handcuffed at the scene and detained for questioning, but then he was later released. But he was just a good friend of theirs, and he was super vocal about his hate of the school before the incident, which normal teenage shit. And Chris was a member of the Trenchcoat Mafia. Again, they weren't like pals with everybody that was considered Trenchcoat Mafia. And it's easy to hate on these people, but also it's like insanely fucked up to think that they have to live with that, like their participation in it, like not knowing the gravity of what they were gonna do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that none of them knew anything, but it's very possible that they didn't. And then they just, again, it's just like that weird butterfly effect of like, if I wouldn't have participated, maybe something would have gone down a different road or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not remembered as like a good movie, but I really liked that movie.
What movie?
Butterfly Effect.
Oh, me too. No,
It's super
it's
like
great.
there's so many like unfinished threads, but
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm like, no,
It's like the
Amy
only-
Smart, you don't have to do that.
It's like what is it? Like the only way he can make sure none of that stuff happens is if he like wraps the umbilical cord around his head in his own uterus or whatever. or is that the second one? I don't know.
I didn't see the second one, but the first one he just like went up to the girl at the birthday party the first time they met, and he's like, "Get away from me, or I'll kill your whole family." And she's like, Jesus. She went and lived with her mom.
I haven't seen it in a while. I think I have it somewhere.
Okay, so apologies were made by the Harris and Klebold families to the victims sometime after. Some expressed that they felt a more genuine energy from the Klebolds. Dylan Klebold's mom, Sue, is now an author and an activist, and she gave her very first interview 17 years after Columbine happened. So following everything, wrongful death suits were filed against the county and the shooter's parents. A bunch of suits were settled. Multiple suicides by parents of victims and survivors themselves followed in the years after the massacre.
God Damn.
Many of the injured survivors were left with lifelong physical harm. Let's not even hit the psychological harm that they and many others undoubtedly experienced. So if you go to our website, svupod.com, and check out the source material under this episode, you can get so much more in depth with interviews with the survivors, their stories, books they've written, and shit that they advocate for. Go support them. Because of what happened at Columbine, the U.S. Justice Department and other Fed agencies would partially fund a new program called ALERT, Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, because active shooter is a term that we unfortunately are very familiar with today, but at the time, police protocol was very different because that wasn't a thing that everyone was familiar with. They'd go in, set up a perimeter, and then methodically go through and clear each room. Now they go in with very particular formations and head directly toward the sound of gunfire. School shootings have become almost commonplace now. We're desensitized to them.
100%.
I remember thinking at the time of Columbine, like, wow, this is definitely going to change gun laws. I could go on and on and on about this shit, but the thing that happened immediately following Columbine, they enforced some tougher purchasing restrictions, which were put in place in Colorado as a result, but our gun laws in this country are still fucked. There are still mass shootings. There are still school shootings. There are still fucking angry 17-year-olds that have access to semi-automatic weapons. Okay.
Yeah.
Next week, we've got episode 6, non-compliance. A woman is raped and murdered, and a man is stabbed in a local store. Will Cabot be able to convince a mentally ill man who witnessed the crime to take his medication in order to be lucid while testifying? Dun dun. Oh my God, there's no fucking kids here. Not that this is like a great crime. Like, I'm not like, yay, rapes and stabbings. Like, no.
I'm halfway through it and it's fucking good.
Yeah.
It's good, like, because it's fucked up.
All right, yeah, I'm like 3 minutes in.
Oh, did I tell you? Remember how I accidentally called 911?
Yeah. Yesterday?
Did I tell you that?
Not as a child, but yesterday as an almost 40-year-old woman.
Not yesterday, but the couple days ago. But yesterday, my upstairs, because I live in a flat, so my upstairs neighbor was like talking to me, and she was fucking with her phone and accidentally dialed 911 too, and had to be like, hey, set our address. And I was like, okay, that's 2 times in 3 days that people have accidentally called 911 at the same address, and they still didn't send anybody. That like bothers me.
I imagine somebody going, 911, this is Gwen. What's your emergency? Nobody says, they don't say their name.
Yeah, they don't.
I mean, in the Midwest, they do.
Hope you're doing good.
Thanks so much. Bye. Oh my gosh, I hope this isn't too bad of an emergency.
Oh God. Oh geez.
Oh geez. I hope everybody's okay. Hello, is everybody okay? Oh my God, give me your mom's number. I'm gonna call her on the other line.
Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to relax and calm down a little bit. Why don't you crack a 7-Up or any kind of pop you choose? Just relax. We'll be there any minute.
You got the crock pot on? I do. This time of year, I just can't not, you know? Fuck you, Abby.
What's she right?
She's giving me shit about my Tekashi 69 problem.
Why? Are you trying to get her to watch it too? Or?
Oh, I've been trying to get her to watch this. But so we were like sending shit back and forth about our merch stuff. And so she sent me this thing of like just like rolling in like $3. And then she's like, also your love of Tekashi 69 both disgusts and fascinates me.
Same.
And I was like, I'm less attracted to him than I was yesterday, if that helps. And she's like, wait, you're attracted to him? He's like 12. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's like 24.
I didn't know that there was like an attraction there.
Well, you know,
this isn't going to turn into one of those Channing Tatum things, is it?
You're the only one that had a Channing Tatum thing.
I know. Is it going to turn out like how I was? Because that hurt.
I don't think I could get to that point. I could. There's no way. There's no way.
That sucked.
And she's like appalled and surprised, and as are you. Like, oh my God, you're attracted to him? Yeah, I dated exclusively fuckboys until I met my husband. Like, my type was fuckboy.
Yeah, but okay.
What? Yeah, but what? He's disgusting?
I know.
I
I love it.
He looks like he couldn't hold down a regular job? I know. He looks like he would hit me? I know. That's a horrible thing to say because, like, his ex he beat her up and stuff.
Oh my God.
I know, he's a piece of shit. I know.
Are you that person that would be, like, sitting in, like, Ted Bundy's side of the court because you're like, he's hot?
That would be me in the 70s. For sure. Wait, when was Ted Bundy? I just picture him in like a Skoda turtleneck.
Yeah, well, he always had like women would like part their hair down the middle because they know that he liked that.
Yeah, that was 70s.
Yeah. What a fucking crazy world that happened. That people were like, I want to fuck Ted Bundy.
I want to fuck Ted Bundy.
Like, first of all, I didn't think he was attractive. I mean, he did.
I didn't either, but I think that's, like every...
For a serial killer, maybe? I guess?
He's hot for a serial killer. I'm into it.
I don't even know how to, like... His eyes were, like, really weird. Close together.
He had crazy eyes, but it was also like I didn't find people attractive in that time period. You know how like every time period has a look that is considered like, we kind of are conditioned to believe is more attractive.
Sure, yeah.
Like dudes in the 80s, find me a hot dude in the 80s. I'll wait.
Yeah.
Like Burt Reynolds on a bearskin rug.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
That's what I was
I'm
thinking.
like in the 80s.
Tom Selleck though, man, he's always been fucking hot. It's the dimples, Tom Selleck.
If I have a choice between Burt Reynolds in his heyday, fucking Tom Selleck in his heyday, or Tekashi 6ix9ine right now, I know, post-snitch at his mom's house with an ankle bracelet on, I would take that.
Burt Reynolds' heyday was like Deliverance times.
Oh my God. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
He was hot in that and did Deliverance, which was weird. One time I watched Deliverance and Sling Blade back to back and cried for like 2 days. This is the thing. I was just thinking about this Deliverance thing. I keep watching movies in doubles that I shouldn't, that I don't realize that I shouldn't. Like I watched Brokeback Mountain and then Milk. You know what I mean? And I was like, this is the worst day of... I'm gonna hurt myself.
Why don't you watch Where the Red Fern Grows and Old Yeller tonight?
No, go fuck yourself. Are you trying to get me to kill myself? We're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm on a thread as it is. How dare you?
Oh shit. I gotta go.
All right.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Follow us on all social media at SVU POD.
Email us at svupod@gmail.com.
You can also go to our website, svupod.com, where we have merch. For perch.
Merch for purchase. Merches for purchase.
If you have a small startup podcast, hashtag littlebitloud. And if you're looking for small startup podcasts that you might not find in a regular search,
follow # littlebitloud. Do you think they call it hashtag because it looks like hash browns?
Obviously.
Oh, really?
No. I'm not going to fight anything new that comes my way anymore, by the way.
What are you talking
Because when hashtags first came out, when it was like first being a thing, I'm like, that's fucking stupid and embarrassing for anybody who uses it or says it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hashtag blah, 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 hashtag blah, hashtag best friends, hashtag blah.
Well, it's so good because you can like, it's such an easy
I
way to
understand it now.
Yeah, it's an easy way to find
I
stuff.
just felt like a fucking old lady. I'm like, I'm not going to use that ever. Just like me in high school where I'm like, I might go to typing class, but I'm not learning the internet.
The computer bus is here, but I refuse.
Computer bus.
Oregon Trail, here I come, but I'm not going to like it. Tasha got typhus.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to you later. I got to go up there for John.
All right, love you, bye.
Love you, bye. I'm not gonna. You get it.
Great. This is terrible.
Thank you.
Oh, I love you.
I love you. I have all of that. Where did I put it?
Did you check your butt?
Don't you. Fuck you. That was like all of your afternoon energy that you just put into that.
It was.
Fucking stupid.
Ugh,
Okay.
I need a nap for real. That gave me cramps.